The stars looked different from here. Captain Jum Kim stood at the large window of the Horizon *, watching as the massive space station grew larger. After 3 weeks of travel from Earth, they had finally arrived at the heart of the Galactic Council. "Captain, we're cleared to dock in 10 minutes, said Officer Tai at the controls. June nodded. "Alert the diplomatic team. Everyone in uniform and ready to go." This was a historic day. Humans were about to join the Galactic Council as its newest members. After decades of searching the stars for other life, first contact had happened just 3 years ago. Now, Earth was taking its place among the 23 alien species that formed the Council. Dr. Hannah Lee entered the bridge, her dark blue uniform neat and pressed. As the ship's lead scientist, she would be key in these meetings. "Ready, Captain?" she asked, checking data on her tablet. "As ready as we'll ever be," Jun replied. "What's the latest report on the Doric representatives?" The Doric were the first aliens to contact Earth. Tall with green-brown scales and yellow eyes, they looked like walking lizards. They had powerful ships and advanced technology. They also seemed very interested in bringing humans into the Council. "They'll be leading the welcome ceremony," Hannah said. "Ambassador Tech himself will meet us at the dock." The Horizon * shuddered slightly as it connected to the station. June straightened his collar and led his team toward the airlock. 6 of Earth's best diplomats, scientists, and military officers walked behind him. The weight of humanity's future rested on their shoulders. The airlock doors slid open. The air smelled strange, like a mix of metal, spice, and something June couldn't name. 4 Doric stood waiting. The tallest stepped forward. "Captain Kim, welcome to Nexus Station. I am Ambassador Tech." His voice was deep with an odd clicking sound between words. "We are pleased Earth has joined our community of worlds." June bowed his head slightly. "The honor is ours, Ambassador. We look forward to learning and sharing with the Council." As they walked through the station's wide hallways, Jun noticed how the Doric and other aliens they passed kept their distance from the humans. Some looked curious, others seemed worried. Most of the 23 Council species were present on the station. Some had tentacles, others had fur, and a few didn't even look solid. Hannah walked beside June, quietly recording everything with her tablet. She leaned closer and whispered, "Have you noticed their drinks?" Jun glanced at the Doric. Each carried a small clear container filled with glowing purple liquid. Every few minutes, they would take small sips. "Some kind of medicine?" Jun asked. "Maybe," Hannah replied. "But only the Doric have it, not the other species." They entered a large round room with a domed ceiling showing the stars outside. Representatives from all Council species stood around a center table. Whispers filled the room as the humans entered. Ambassador Tech raised his container of purple liquid. "To new friendships and the growth of our Council," he said loudly. Everyone raised their own drinks, except the humans who had none. June noticed that while other species had water or different colored drinks, only the Doric had the purple liquid. After the toast, Tech led June to meet other representatives. A small blue alien with 4 arms seemed friendly, but a tall, thin creature with silver skin moved away when June came near. "Don't mind the Valak," Tech said. "They are cautious with new species." Later, at a private meeting with just the human team, Hannah shared her observations. "The purple drink is called Vexa," she said. "They wouldn't tell me what's in it, but they treat it like something special. Only high-ranking Doric have it." "Is it dangerous?" asked Lieutenant Sung Park, the team's security officer. "I don't know," Hannah said. "But Ambassador Tech was very careful not to let me scan it. When I asked about it, he changed the subject." June looked out at the stars again. Earth looked so small from here, just one tiny point of light among millions. "We need to be careful," he said. "We're new here, and we don't know all the rules yet. Watch everything, learn everything, but stay alert. Something tells me there's more to these Doric and their purple drink than they're telling us." Outside their room, Ambassador Tech listened at the door, his yellow eyes narrowing. He took another sip of Vexa, feeling its power flow through him. These humans were smarter than he had hoped. This might be more difficult than planned. 3 days had passed since the humans arrived at Nexus Station. Captain Jum Kim stood tall in his dress uniform. Tonight was the official welcome ceremony for Earth. The Grand Hall was filled with representatives from all 23 council species. Floating lights changed colors above them. Strange music played from hidden speakers. "Quite a show they've put on for us," said Dr. Hannah Lee, standing beside June. "Yes, but notice how they've seated us," June replied quietly. The humans were placed at a small table far from the main council members. The Doraks sat at the head table, their purple Vexa drinks glowing under the lights. Ambassador Tech stood and tapped his glass. The room fell silent. "We welcome our new friends from Earth," he said, his yellow eyes fixed on June. "Though they are young and have much to learn, we hope they will find their place among us." June didn't miss the hint in those words. The Dorak were treating humans like children. After dinner, June approached Ambassador Tech. The tall reptilian was speaking with 3 other council members. All held containers of Vexa. "Ambassador, thank you for your welcome," Jum said with a small bow. "Earth is eager to contribute to the council." Tech looked down at June. "Contribute? What could Earth possibly offer that we don't already have?" The other aliens made clicking sounds that might have been laughter. June kept his face calm. "New ideas. Different ways of solving problems. Humans are good at finding new paths." "Perhaps," Tech said. "But the galaxy is a harsh place, Captain. I wonder if humans are too soft for such realities." "What do you mean by soft?" June asked. Tech took a slow sip of his Vexa. "In the council, power matters. Some species have natural advantages. The myth can breathe in space. The Valak can see energy fields. The Dorak." He paused, lifting his purple drink. "We have our own strengths." Lieutenant Sung Park joined them, standing at June's side. He was the youngest of the human team, strong and smart. "Is that why only Dorak drink that purple liquid?" Sung asked. The air seemed to cool. Tech's eyes narrowed. "Vexa is part of our biology," Tech said. "It is distilled from our blood." Hannah, who had been listening nearby, stepped closer. Her scientist mind was clearly working fast. "Your blood?" she asked. Tech seemed to enjoy their interest. "The Dorak evolved as apex predators on our world. Our blood contains a powerful neurotoxin that is deadly to every species we've encountered." He smiled, showing sharp teeth. "Even a few drops can kill within minutes." "Then why drink it?" Sung asked. "It reminds us of our strength," Tech said. "And it serves as a reminder to others during negotiations." June understood now. The Dorak used their toxic drink as a threat. They kept other species afraid. "Interesting approach to diplomacy," June said. Tech leaned closer. "It is not diplomacy, Captain. It is reality. The strong survive. The weak follow." Later, back in their private quarters, the human team discussed what they had learned. "They're bullies," Sung said. "They use fear to control the council." Hannah was working on her tablet. "I've been researching council laws. Nothing prevents us from asking for a sample of Vexa to study." "Would they give it to us?" asked Jin Kang, Hannah's assistant. "Probably not," Jun said. "But we should try. Knowledge is power, and right now we don't have enough of either." The next morning, Jun requested a meeting with Ambassador Tech. The Dorak seemed surprised by the request but agreed. "Captain, what can I do for you?" Tech asked, his container of Vexa sitting on the table between them. "We would like to learn more about Vexa," Jun said. "As new members of the council, we should understand important cultural elements." Tech's face showed no emotion. "Vexa is not for humans to understand. It is for Dorak only." "Are you afraid we might learn something?" Jun asked. Tech stood up, towering over Jun. Afraid? No. But some knowledge is dangerous, Captain, especially for soft creatures like humans. As June left the meeting, he knew the lines had been drawn. The Doraks saw humans as weak. They used their poison to keep others in line. But they didn't know humans very well yet. And humans had survived on Earth by adapting to dangers and overcoming them. A week after the welcome ceremony, the Galactic Council held a large reception. All member species gathered in the Grand Hall of Nexus Station. The humans wore their best uniforms, trying to make a good impression. Captain Jum Kim watched the room carefully. The Dorak representatives stood in small groups, their purple Vexa drinks glowing under the lights. Other alien species kept their distance from them. This is our chance to make more allies, Jun told his team. Split up. Talk to different species. Learn what you can. Lieutenant Sung Park nodded and moved toward a group of the blue four-armed aliens they had learned were called Myth. The Myth seemed friendly and curious about humans. Dr. Hannah Lee was deep in conversation with a tall silver Valak scientist. Despite their initial fear of humans, the Valak were interested in Earth's technology. June approached a group where Ambassador Tech was speaking. The tall Dorak didn't look happy to see him. Captain, joining high-level discussions already, Tech said. His voice had that clicking sound that June now knew was a sign of annoyance. Just learning, Ambassador, Jun replied with a small bow. As you said, we have much to learn. Across the room, Sung was having a good talk with the Myth. They were traders who visited many worlds. The Dorak control too many important trade routes, one Myth named Rill told Sung. They charge high fees for ships to pass. And if someone doesn't pay? Sung asked. Rill's four arms moved in a nervous pattern. Bad things happen. Ships disappear. The Doraks say it's pirates, but his voice trailed off as he looked over Sung's shoulder. Sung turned to see Ambassador Tech approaching. The Dorak's yellow eyes were fixed on them. He held his container of Vexa in one clawed hand. Lieutenant Park, I see you're making new friends, Tech said. Be careful what stories you believe. The Myth quickly excused himself and hurried away. Sung was now alone with the much taller Dorak. The Myth were just telling me about their home world, Sung said. Were they? Tech moved closer, looking down at Sung. Or were they complaining about the natural order of things? Sung tried to step back, but there were too many people behind him. He bumped into someone, lost his balance, and reached out to steady himself. His hand hit Tech's arm. The container of Vexa tipped. Purple liquid splashed out. Most landed on the floor, but some sprayed across Sung's hand and wrist. The room went completely silent. Every alien stared at Sung. Some backed away quickly. Others made sounds of shock. Some looked at his hand. The purple liquid felt cool on his skin. Ambassador Tech's face showed real emotion for the first time. Fear. Get help. Now. Tech shouted. The human has been exposed. Dr. Hannah pushed through the crowd. Sung, don't move. She grabbed his arm and pulled him toward the exit. June followed them, keeping other aliens back. What's happening? Sung asked. It just feels a little cold, that's all. They rushed to the human quarters where Hannah had set up a small medical lab. She pushed Sung into a chair and began scanning his hand with her equipment. The Vexa is absorbed through skin, she said, working quickly. According to what the Dorak have told other species, you should be in terrible pain by now. Sung looked at his hand. It just tingles a little. Hannah's scanner beeped. She stared at the results. This can't be right, she said. The toxin is in your system, but it's breaking down. Your body is fighting it. June looked at the closed door. Soon, the Dorak would come looking for them. Will he be okay? June asked. Hannah ran another scan. Yes, his body is processing the toxin like it's just a mild irritant. She looked up with wide eyes. Sung should be dead or dying. But he's fine. Sung flexed his fingers. So the Dorak poison doesn't work on humans. A slow smile spread across June's face. This changes everything. Outside their quarters, aliens whispered about what they had seen. Word spread quickly through Nexus Station. A human had touched Vexa and lived. The Doric's greatest weapon might have just met its match. Dr. Hannah Lee hadn't slept in 20 hours. The small lab in the human quarters was filled with equipment she had brought from Earth. Screens showed data and images of cells. "How is he?" Captain Jum Kim asked as he entered the lab. Hannah looked up from her work. "Sung is completely fine. He's resting now, but there are no side effects at all." Jin Kang, Hannah's assistant, was studying a small sample of purple liquid in a clear container. "Is that?" Jum began. "Vexa," Jin said. "Yes, I collected some from the floor after the accident. Not much, but enough to study." Hannah pointed to a screen showing tiny moving cells. "This is what happens when Vexa meets alien blood." The cells quickly stopped moving. Total cell death in under a minute. But this, she switched to another screen. "This is Sung's blood with Vexa." June watched as the cells seemed to surround the purple toxin, break it down, and continue moving normally. "Our livers have a special enzyme that can break down the toxin," Hannah explained. "It's similar to how we process alcohol, but much more efficient." "So Vexa is harmless to all humans?" June asked. "Based on my tests, yes," Hannah said. "In fact, once processed, it seems to give a mild energy boost, like coffee." Jin looked up from his work. "Should we tell everyone?" June thought for a moment. "No, not yet. This is valuable information. If the Doric find out, they'll try to stop us from sharing it. We need to learn more first." A message alert sounded. It was from Ambassador Tech. "Captain Kim, we are concerned about Lieutenant Park's condition. Our medical team would like to examine him." June looked at Hannah. She shook her head. "Thank you for your concern, Ambassador," June replied. "Our medical officer has the situation under control. Lieutenant Park is resting comfortably." There was a long pause before Tech responded. "This is most unusual. The effects of Vexa are well documented. We insist on examining the human." "That won't be necessary," Jum said firmly. "As guests of the council, we maintain medical privacy for our team." The communication ended. June knew Tech wouldn't be satisfied with that answer. "We need to be careful," he told Hannah and Jin. "The Dorak will be watching us closely now." Over the next 3 days, Hannah and Jin worked in secret. They ran tests on blood samples from all the human crew members. Every sample showed the same result. Human blood could neutralize the Doric toxin. "There's something else," Jin said on the 3rd day. "Look at this." He held up a cloth that had been soaked in human sweat, then dried. Drops of Vexa fell onto it from a small dropper. The purple color faded quickly. "Human sweat contains compounds that neutralize Vexa from the outside," Jin explained. "It's not as fast as inside our bodies, but it works." Hannah's eyes widened. "So we could make something that renders Vexa harmless. A spray or wipe?" "Exactly," Jin said. "A simple solution of human sweat compounds could neutralize their weapon completely." The door to the lab opened, and Lieutenant Sung Park walked in. He looked healthy and rested. "How's our patient?" Hannah asked with a smile. "Never felt better," Sung said. "In fact, I feel great, like I just had a strong cup of coffee." June looked thoughtful. "So Vexa not only doesn't harm humans, it might actually benefit us." "It seems so," Hannah said. "The toxin breaks down into compounds that stimulate our system. Nothing dangerous, just a mild boost." A plan was forming in June's mind. "Keep working on that neutralizing spray, but keep everything secret. Tell no one outside our team." "The Doric representatives have been watching our door," Sung reported. "They're nervous." "They should be," June said. "Their greatest weapon doesn't work on us. But they don't know if that's just you or all humans." "What will we do with this information?" Jin asked. June looked at the sample of Vexa. "For now, We wait and learn more. The Dorak have used fear to control the council for too long, but timing is everything. Outside in the station, rumors had already begun to spread. The human who touched Vexa had lived. Some aliens whispered that maybe at last, someone could stand up to the Dorak. 2 weeks after the incident with Lieutenant Sung, the full Galactic Council gathered for an important meeting. Earth's status as a new member was on the agenda. Captain Jum Kim and his team sat at their small table across the room. Ambassador Tech and 5 other Dorak watched them with cold yellow eyes. All the Dorak had their containers of Vexa in front of them. The Council will now discuss the terms for Earth's membership, announced the head of the Council, a tall blue alien named Director Mose. Ambassador Tech stood. The Dorak Confederation has concerns about Earth joining as a full member so quickly. Humans are an unknown factor. Their unusual biology may pose risks to other species. June knew what Tech meant. The Dorak were worried about humans being immune to their poison. We propose that Earth remain a provisional member for 20 cycles, Tech continued. During this time, all human ships must have Dorak observers on board. All human trade must go through approved channels. These terms would put Earth under Dorak control. June could see other council members looking down. No one challenged the Dorak. We have a question, Jun said, standing up. Why does Earth need special restrictions that other new members did not have? Tech's scales seemed to darken with anger. Because other species understand their place in the natural order. They accept the protection of stronger races. You mean they fear you, Jun said. The room became very quiet. No one had spoken to a Dorak this way in the council before. Tech lifted his container of Vexa and took a slow drink. It was a clear threat. Fear is a natural response to power, Captain. The Dorak have earned our position. Dr. Hannah Lee slipped something into June's pocket, a small spray she and Jin had made from their research. The neutralizing spray that could make Vexa harmless. June made a decision. It was time for a bold move. Ambassador Tech, June said clearly, Earth wishes to be a good member of the Council. We respect traditions. In that spirit, I would like to share in your tradition. He pointed to the Vexa. May I taste your drink? Gasps filled the room. Some aliens stood up in shock. Others moved toward the exits. Tech's yellow eyes widened. You don't know what you're asking, human. Vexa is deadly to all but the Dorak. If you bring it to every meeting, Jum said. You drink it in front of everyone. If it's just a cultural symbol, surely sharing is appropriate. Tech was trapped. If he refused, he would admit the drink was a weapon, not a cultural symbol. If he allowed it, he expected June to die, creating a diplomatic disaster. After a long moment, Tech's mouth formed what might have been a smile. Of course, Captain. In the spirit of friendship, he slid his container across the table. The council chamber was completely silent. No one moved. All eyes were on June. He picked up the container, secretly using the spray on his hand first. He didn't know if it would work fast enough, but he had a backup plan. Human immunity. June lifted the container to his lips and took a small sip. The liquid had a strong, bitter taste with a hint of something like ripe fruit. It tingled on his tongue. Everyone waited for him to collapse, to die in agony as the neurotoxin attacked his system. Instead, Jun set the container down and smiled. Interesting. It has a fruity aftertaste. Thank you for sharing, Ambassador. The council erupted in chaos. Aliens shouted and pointed. The Dorak delegation stood frozen in shock. Director Mose called for order, but no one listened. Tech's face showed pure disbelief. How is this possible? Tech demanded. No species has ever survived Vexa. Dr. Hannah stepped forward. Human biology is different from what you've encountered before. The toxin in Vexa doesn't affect us the same way. The power in the room had shifted. The Dorak's greatest weapon, the source of their control over the Council, was useless against humans. As the shouting continued, June caught the eye of a small myth representative, who gave him a subtle nod of thanks. Other species were looking at the humans with new interest and hope. The Doric delegation hurried out of the chamber to discuss this disaster in private. Their centuries of control were suddenly in danger. June turned to his team. Now the real negotiations begin. The council meeting was called back to order after 2 hours of chaos. News had spread through the entire Nexus station. A human had drunk Vexa and lived. Captain Jum Kim and his team sat at their table, now moved to a more central position in the chamber. Aliens from many species kept glancing at them with new interest. The Doric delegation had returned, but they looked different. Their scales seemed duller. Ambassador Tech sat stiffly, his container of Vexa nowhere to be seen. Director Mose called for silence. This unexpected development requires explanation. Captain Kim, can you tell the council how you survived contact with Vexa? All eyes turned to June. This was the moment to reveal what they had learned. Dr. Hannah Lee gave him a small nod. June stood. Director, honored council members, what happened today wasn't a trick or special preparation. It appears that humans naturally possess a biological ability to process the toxin in Vexa without harm. Murmurs filled the room. Tech's yellow eyes narrowed to thin slits. Hannah stood next to June. With the council's permission, I would like to present our preliminary findings. Director Mose nodded. Please proceed, Doctor. Hannah activated her tablet, and a large screen showed images of cells. These are cells from various council species exposed to Vexa. The cells quickly died, and these are human cells. The cells surrounded the toxin and broke it down. The human liver produces an enzyme that neutralizes the toxin, Hannah explained in simple terms. This isn't something we engineered. It's just how our bodies work. Ambassador Tech jumped to his feet. This is impossible. They must have found a way to protect themselves. They must have created an antidote. That's not true, Lieutenant Sung said. When I was exposed to Vexa 2 weeks ago, it was a complete accident. I had no preparation, no protection. Yet I suffered no harm. A low whistle came from the myth section. 2 weeks ago. The rumors were true then. Tech pointed at the humans. They are hiding something. Vexa has been deadly to every species in the galaxy for thousands of years. Director Mose raised a hand for quiet. Dr. Lee, are all humans resistant to Vexa? Based on our tests, yes, Hannah said. It appears to be a natural part of human biology. A tall Valak scientist stood. May I ask, what happens to the toxin after human bodies process it? Hannah smiled. An excellent question. The toxin breaks down into compounds that actually give humans a mild energy boost, similar to a beverage on Earth called coffee. This caused even more excitement. Not only were humans immune to Vexa, but it gave them energy. Ambassador Tech was furious. This council meeting must be suspended. The Doric Confederation demands time to verify these claims. Director Mose looked thoughtful. Captain Kim, would members of your team be willing to provide samples for independent testing? Of course, Jun said. We have nothing to hide. The meeting ended with plans for further tests. As the aliens filed out, many approached the human team with questions and curious looks. A small myth trader named Rill came to Sung. For centuries, the Doric have used Vexa to frighten us, to make demands, to keep us in line. His 4 arms moved in an excited pattern. You have changed everything today. Back in their quarters, the human team celebrated quietly. You took a big risk drinking that Vexa, Hannah told June. Even though we knew you should be immune, we hadn't tested a full drink before. June smiled. It actually wasn't bad. Bitter, but with that fruity aftertaste. Jin Kang looked at his tablet. Messages are coming in from all over the station. Species that have been afraid to talk to us now want meetings. And the Doric? Some asked. They've retreated to their section of the station, Jin said. No communications from them. June looked out the window at the stars. They won't give up so easily. Their power in the council is built on fear of their poison. We've just shown everyone that their greatest weapon doesn't work on humans. What happens next? Hannah asked. Now we build alliances, June said. The Doric ruled through fear. We'll lead through cooperation. Outside, throughout Nexus Station, the news continued to spread. Humans were immune to Vexa. The age of Doric control might finally be ending. 3 days after Captain June drank Vexa in front of the council, the Doric made their move. Ambassador Tech called for an emergency meeting of the council's security committee. June and Dr. Hannah Lee sat at the human table, now placed among the main council members. Many aliens nodded to them as they entered. The atmosphere had changed. Ambassador Tech stood at the center of the chamber. His scales looked polished again, and his yellow eyes gleamed with confidence. Honored council members, Tech began. The Doric Confederation has completed our investigation of the human immunity to Vexa. Our findings are disturbing. He activated a large screen showing complex DNA patterns. This is standard human DNA, Tech said. He switched to another image. And this is the DNA of Captain Kim and his team. Notice the differences. The images looked similar to most in the room, but Tech pointed to small sections that had been highlighted. The humans have artificially modified their genetic structure, Tech announced. They have engineered themselves to resist Vexa. Gasps and whispers filled the room. Genetic modification was strictly controlled under council law. Hannah stood quickly. That is completely false. Human DNA naturally contains these markers. Tech's mouth formed what might have been a smile. Then why do they match known genetic modification patterns? Why do they appear in the exact areas that would counter Vexa's effects? Because evolution works that way, Hannah replied. Similar problems often lead to similar solutions. Director Mose looked troubled. These are serious accusations. Ambassador, what do you propose? Tech straightened to his full height. For the safety of all council members, we demand that all human ships and personnel be quarantined immediately. Their genetic modifications must be studied to ensure they haven't created other dangerous changes. June could see the trap. If humans were quarantined, they would lose all the goodwill and alliances they had been building. The Doric would have time to regain control. Director, June said calmly, we have already provided samples for independent testing. The results will show that humans have no genetic modifications. Tests take time, Tech said. Safety requires immediate action. As the debate continued, Jin Kang slipped into the chamber and handed Hannah a small spray bottle. She passed it to June under the table with a note. It works. 100% effective. The neutralizing spray they had developed from human sweat compounds was ready. It could render Vexa completely harmless. June had a plan. He stood and raised his hand. Director Mose, if I may make a suggestion. The director nodded. Please, Captain. Instead of quarantine, why not a simple demonstration? Jun said. Ambassador Tech believes we have modified ourselves to resist Vexa. But what if we could show that Vexa itself can be neutralized by natural human compounds? Tech's eyes narrowed. What are you suggesting? A test, Jun said. Right here, right now. The council agreed to the test. A fresh container of Vexa was brought in. A small animal similar to a mouse was placed in a clear box. This creature will die within seconds if exposed to even a drop of Vexa, Tech explained. Now, Jun said, we will apply a natural compound found in human sweat to half of the Vexa. He took out the spray bottle and sprayed half of the purple liquid in the container. The liquid turned clear where the spray touched it. Tech looked worried for the first time. What have you done to it? Watch, Jun said. 2 drops of Vexa were placed in the box with the small animal. 1 drop was the original purple liquid. The other was the clear liquid that had been sprayed. The animal sniffed the purple drop and immediately fell over, shaking. But when it touched the clear drop, nothing happened. It sniffed it and walked away. The natural compounds in human sweat neutralize Vexa, Hannah explained. This isn't genetic modification, it's just basic chemistry. The council members looked amazed. Not only were humans immune to Vexa internally, but they could neutralize it externally too. Tech was furious. This proves nothing. They could have created this spray through artificial means. But June could see that the council wasn't listening to Tech anymore. The Dorx counterattack had failed. Director Mose called for a vote. The quarantine was rejected. Instead, the council approved further cooperation between humans and other species to study the neutralizing compound. As they left the chamber, Rill the myth trader approached June. The Dork are afraid now, Rill said quietly. And afraid Dork are dangerous Dork. Be careful, Captain. June nodded. They had won this round, but the fight wasn't over yet. The news spread quickly through Nexus Station. Humans could not only survive Vexa but could also neutralize it. Species that had feared the Dork for centuries now looked at humans with hope. Captain Jum Kim was surprised when his communication system chimed. It was a message from Elder Lox, leader of the myth delegation. Captain, we need to speak privately. This is urgent. Jun agreed to meet the myth elder in a quiet area of the station's garden section. The garden was filled with plants from dozens of worlds. It was peaceful, and most importantly, easy to check for listening devices. June arrived first and walked slowly among the strange plants. Lieutenant Sum Park stood nearby, watching for any Dork spies. Elder Lox arrived with 2 other myth. They were small blue aliens with 4 arms and large kind eyes. Lox was older, his skin a deeper blue than the others. Thank you for meeting us, Captain, Lox said in a soft voice. What you have done has given many species new hope. We just shared the truth, Jun said simply. Lox looked around carefully. For 200 years, the Dork have controlled major trade routes using Vexa as a threat. They tax our ships. They take our resources. If we complain, accidents happen. The old myth's 4 hands made a sad pattern in the air. Many have tried to stand against them. All have failed because of Vexa. Until now, Jun said. Yes, until now, Lox agreed. Captain, the myth wished to propose an alliance with Earth, and we are not alone. He explained that 12 species had met in secret. All had suffered under Dork control. All wanted change. We can offer trade, technology, star maps, and friendship, Lox said. In return, we ask for your help in creating a more fair council. June thought carefully. This was a big step. I will need to discuss this with Earth. But personally, I support the idea. Elder Lox seemed relieved. The Dork have ruled through fear for too long. It is time for change. As they finished talking, Jun noticed a silver Valak watching from nearby. The Valak nodded slightly and moved away. More allies, Jun thought. Back in the human quarters, Jun called his team together. We've been invited to form an alliance, he told them. 12 species want to work with us against Dork control. Dr. Hannah Lee looked concerned. Is this just about using us against the Dork? What happens after? A fair question, Jun said. Elder Lox talked about a more fair council, where all species have equal voice. That matches our own values. Jin Kang was reviewing messages on his tablet. 6 more species have requested meetings with us. The station is buzzing with talk of change. Sung looked up from his security station. The Dork have called all their ships back to Nexus. They're adding guards to their section of the station. They're preparing for something, Jun said. Their discussion was interrupted by an urgent message. The full council was being called to an emergency session. The Dork were making a major announcement. When they arrived at the council chamber, Jun could feel the tension in the air. The Dork delegation sat together, their yellow eyes watching everyone. Ambassador Tech stood at the center of the room. He looked different, harder, colder. The Dork Confederation has been patient, Tech began. We have allowed these disruptions to our council, but patience has limits. He activated a large screen showing a star map. Red dots appeared on several worlds. Doric battle fleets have been placed on alert at key locations, Tech announced. Any species that violates established trade agreements will face immediate consequences. It was a clear threat. The Doric were reminding everyone that they had military power, not just Vexa. But something unexpected happened. Elder Lox stood up. The myth reject these threats, the old alien said in a firm voice. We have signed a new trade agreement with Earth. We recognize no Doric authority over our routes. One by one, other representatives stood. The Silver Valak, the tall plant-like Thrall, the Crystal Zelra, 12 species in all, each announcing new agreements with Earth. Tech looked shocked. He had expected fear, not defiance. Jum stood last. Earth is honored to work with our new friends. We seek peace, but we will defend our allies. The council was changing. The balance of power was shifting, and it had all started with a single sip of poison that couldn't harm a human. 6 months had passed since Captain Jum Kim first drank Vexa in front of the Galactic Council. Today was a historic day. The Council would vote on Earth's full membership. Nexus Station looked different now. Humans walked freely among other species. Many aliens wore small blue pins, the symbol of the new alliance that had formed against Doric control. Jum stood by a window, looking at the stars. Dr. Hannah Lee joined him. Nervous? She asked. A little, June admitted. The Doric have been quiet lately. That worries me. In the months since the alliance formed, the Doric had pulled back their threats of military action. Their battle fleets had returned to normal positions. They had been unusually cooperative in recent council meetings. Too cooperative, Hannah agreed. They're planning something. Lieutenant Sung Park approached them. It's time, Captain. The council is gathering. The council chamber was full. All 23 member species were present for this important vote. The Doric delegation sat together, their yellow eyes watching everything. Director Mose called the meeting to order. Today we vote on the full membership of Earth in the Galactic Council. All provisional requirements have been met. Ambassador Tech raised his hand. The Doric Confederation wishes to speak before the vote. The room grew quiet. Everyone expected more threats or objections. Tech moved to the center of the chamber. He looked different, thinner, less confident. The Doric Confederation recognizes Earth's qualifications for membership, Tech said. This surprised everyone. However, we propose special terms for this membership. Here it comes, Jun thought. The trap. Tech activated a screen showing a complex document. Earth will be granted full membership with all rights and privileges. In return, Earth agrees to limit its military presence in Sector 7 and Sector 12. These were key areas controlled by the Doric. They wanted to keep humans away from their most important systems. Additionally, Tech continued, Earth will not share its Vexa neutralizing technology with non-council species. The terms were clearly designed to limit human influence, but they were much less strict than expected. Director Mose turned to June. Captain Kim, does Earth accept these terms? June stood. This was the moment he had prepared for. Earth accepts these terms, with one addition of our own. He activated his own screen, showing the simple document. We propose a new council law. All diplomatic beverages must be safe for consumption by all member species. The meaning was clear. No more Vexa at council meetings. No more implied threats using poison. Tech's yellow eyes narrowed. This is outrageous. Vexa is a sacred part of Doric culture, which you can continue in private, Jun said calmly, but not as a diplomatic weapon. Elder Lox of the Myth stood. The Myth support this addition. One by one, representatives from the Alliance species stood to support the proposal. They were joined by others who had been quiet before. Even some of the Doric's traditional allies nodded in agreement. Tech looked around the chamber. He could see he was outnumbered. The old ways of control were ending. The Doric, accept this addition, Tech said finally, his voice tight with anger. The vote was taken. Earth became the 24th full member of the Galactic Council. The new beverage law passed with overwhelming support. Later, at a celebration in the human quarters, Jum, Hana, Sung, and Jin raised small glasses in a toast. "What are we drinking?" asked Jin. Jum smiled. "It's called Earth Spirit. The station shops can't keep it in stock." The purple liquid in their glasses glowed softly. Vexa, now marketed throughout council space as an exotic human energy drink. Across the station, in their own quarters, Ambassador Tech held a glass of clear water. For the first time in council history, a Doric diplomat had drunk from a human vessel at the ceremony. "The galaxy is changing," Hannah said, looking out at the stars. "For the better," Jun replied. "Fear never builds lasting peace. Only trust and respect can do that." Outside their window, ships from a dozen worlds docked at Nexus Station. Trade was growing. New alliances were forming. Species that had been enemies for centuries were talking again. And it had all started because the Doric thought their poison was unbeatable. Until a human took a sip.